Hi there. Welcome to Season 3 of But Seriously the Cancer Podcast. My name is Bert Scholl. I'm a two-time cancer survivor, a cancer survivorship coach, and the creator and host of But Seriously the Cancer Podcast. To learn more about my coaching services, please go to bertscholl.com. That's BERTSCHOLL.com. We'd also really love your feedback on the show, so please go to bertscholl.com and you can submit your feedback by clicking the contact link and filling out the form at the bottom. Thank you so much. I super appreciate every one of you. And make sure to check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/ButSeriouslyTheCancerPodcast. Today's guest is Diane Zandstra. Diane and her boyfriend, Cory Stone, reside in an historic neighborhood northeast of downtown Nashville with their two cats, Photon and Minnie. They both record and perform together as the duo Coffee with Her, online and in local venues. These days, Diane works for one of the big three major record labels on a global data team with the best group of people she can imagine. In her free time, she and Cory enjoy a great cup of espresso, connecting with friends, running, and living a sweet and simple life. Diane, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Bert. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's great to meet you.
You too.
So will you start by letting everyone know what kind of cancer you were diagnosed with and how old you were?
Sure. I was diagnosed with breast cancer. First time was in 2010, in August of 2010, and the second time was in October of 2016.
And how old were you the first time you were diagnosed?
First time it was just a couple months before my 43rd birthday, so I was 42.
Just about to turn 43. I was just about to turn 37 when I was diagnosed for the first time. And a few weeks later, had a birthday.
Wow.
Different kind of birthday.
Yeah. Yeah, the world turns on, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does. So how did you find out that you had cancer?
I had just gone for a mammogram because I had, had some dense parts on my breast. It wasn't really anything that felt like a bump or certainly not any pain or anything. But it was, getting to be about that time, I suppose, maybe a little early to start checking on those things. And so that's when they found that. At that point in my life, I was working in nonprofit fundraising, and I was the head of fundraising for a large mental health organization here. And I was out to lunch with my marketing person and with actually my board chair at the time. And I got the call, and I'm like, oh, I have to go take this. And I ran outside, and they're like, yeah, it's cancer. We're probably going to have to do a lumpectomy. And I'm like, okay, great. I'll circle back with you. And it was just one of those things where I'm like, okay, well, this is just something else I have to do, is really kind of what my mindset was that first time around, which is kind of crazy when I think back on it now,
Right, yeah. So it sounds like you anticipated the possibility of the positive diagnosis, yeah?
Sure. I mean, yes and no. I guess I did. It had been kind of the job I was in was pretty stressful. My mom was older and she passed away probably about a year after that. But she was going through, kind of end of life stuff. And, so again, it just kind of seemed like here's another one of those things that, we're going to deal with and figure out.
So you got the call and you went back to your meeting.
Yeah, I did. Exactly. Went back to lunch.
Did you tell them or did you just wait? Was it not a good time?
My coworker, I told, because she knew what was going on and we were close friends, and she had some of that in her family as well. Mm-hmm. I didn't tell my board chair at the time, even though, I just, I didn't want that lunch to be about that.
Yeah, the lunch would only be about that if you shared it with them.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, I'll deal with this later. So.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the next step?
Again, I guess I was lucky. It was a stage 0 diagnosis. A very, very small. So I had a lumpectomy. They also took out some lymph nodes and then radiation after that.
Interesting. They took out lymph nodes even though it was a stage 0.
Well, they took them out just to check.
Okay, and that's how they determined it was stage 0?
I guess no, they told me it was stage 0 before the
Okay.
lumpectomy. I mean, they had done the needle biopsy, which I don't know, to me to this day that is still the part that that I dislike the most of the process. That was not my favorite thing. I had to go, and I don't know if this has changed in the past few years. I feel like I've talked to a few friends who are going through this, and they had a little bit different experience, but I had to lay on a table, and the table has a hole in it for the breast. And then they take that breast and basically put it in like you're having a mammogram, so they can get it positioned exactly how they want to. And then they do that needle biopsy, and you're not knocked out for this. You get some, numbing and that kind of thing, and
A little sedative, maybe.
a little sedative to kind of, because then, they do all that and they're like, okay, hold your breath. It's, you know, and so that part of it is definitely my least favorite part.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as far as like my treatment and all of that for the first time around for the lumpectomy, I guess I did feel very fortunate, here in Nashville, Tennessee. We have incredible hospitals and doctors, and I feel like I got one of the best. And that's just been shown over and over again to me over the past, it's been, 10 years now since
Yeah.
I've been working with them. I mean, I walk into their office and, everybody knows my name. But just really a terrific team. And so that was very comforting. And then also, I don't know, I think the biggest part about my story, and especially the second time around, but definitely the first time around too, is my community. I had a friend that would go with me that, was a nurse, and she'd go with me to my appointments because I was a single gal at that time. And you're getting a lot of, information, and having that extra set of ears is a big, huge help for sure.
So can you say more about that, this community of people that were there to support you?
Sure. The first time around, I had family and friends and all of that kind of thing that helped. But the thing that kind of rings most to me from the first time around when I went to my radiation appointments, I had 33 to go to.
Wow.
Yeah. And
That's
it was,
a lot.
yeah.
That's a lot
Yeah.
of radiation.
It was a lot, but again, the I feel like the team that I had there, they made me feel great. It was
Yeah.
something I would go to before I would go to work, and you'd have to go down in this. It was in the basement of essentially of the hospital, and and it's big buzzy machines and all that kind of thing. But when I'd lay down on the ceiling, where the fluorescent lights were, they had like an insert in that was just like a field of flowers. and I was a kind of a nonprofit executive, and so I was always going to a lunch or a meeting, or or running a board meeting or something like that. And so I was always dressed in my going to board meeting stuff, and usually had really cute shoes on, and which was the only thing that the technicians could see when I was doing my radiation treatments. And so they always complimented my shoes. And I don't know, they made it like something that I felt like, oh, I can look forward to seeing these people because I know they're really caring for me. And
Yeah.
so that stuck out in a big way.
They're a special group of folks that are in that line of work.
They really are. They really are. So, and again, when my second diagnosis came around, that was a whole nother, I don't know, just time of stress in my life. I had just left a job. Actually, the job had made changes and asked me to leave and other folks to leave. They were, kind of changing things up. So I was about a month out of that. I was also, at that time, I was doing a lot of running, and I was training for my second full marathon. So,
Wow.
yeah. So in 2016, I actually ran two full marathons. I ran over 1,000 miles just in that year.
Wow.
Yeah, and that that was something I'd been working up to since I guess I started in 2013. I really had never run at all, and I did a couch to 5K program, and I got hooked.
Oh, that
And
is so inspiring to me because I've gotten so far as thinking about running. You know, that's about it. Like when I was in my early 20s, I think,
hmm
going to college, we had phys ed classes for junior college, and I would get on the Stairmaster and just turn it up to full speed and just run. And I've always
that
loved how
sounds
that felt.
horrible.
Yeah, right? And by the end of that run, I felt fantastic. And I was just,
Yeah.
walking home and just, bouncing on my feet. And
Hmm.
at this point in my life, as I go through, you know, still doing some recovery from cancer even after all these years,
Sure.
from the treatments and surgeries. And it's crossed my mind that running might be a thing for me to do. And for you to tell me that you went from like no running at all to running within 3 years, you did 1,000 miles in the last year and ran two marathons. I mean, that's
It's
wonderful to
possible.
hear.
And I mean, I was part of a running community that made that possible. And so I've coached, I started out being a participant, and I've coached hundreds of people to do it.
Well, we may have to
And
talk off camera in a little bit
you
after this is
got it.
over. I want to
I'd
learn a
love
few
to.
things.
I'd love
Great.
to.
Thank you.
But it's that. So 2 weeks before the second marathon that I was running in Indianapolis, Indiana. And
Okay.
2 weeks before that, I had my every 6 month checkup, and we had been watching something. So in 2015, I was kind of supposed to graduate from coming every 6 months to just once a year to check
Mm-hmm.
in to see how I was doing. And in 2015, they started seeing something in my right breast. So the left breast was where I had the lumpectomy and radiation. And they saw something there, and they're like, well, we're just going to keep watching it. So in October of 2016, 2 weeks before my marathon, she's like, yeah, I don't like the way that looks, and I want to do a biopsy, and we need to check this. And I said, well, that's great, but I'm running a marathon in 2 weeks, and if we can wait a couple of weeks, that would be great. And she said, sure, that's fine.
Oh, good.
Yeah, yeah. So I ran the marathon. It was a beautiful day. I actually ran it with one of my friends. She was actually my very first coach when I started the Couch to 5K stuff. And she's one of these people that is called a marathon maniac, and she's run marathons in every state.
Wow, that
Yeah,
sounds like a maniac to me. And it's called Couch to 5K. It's actually a
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. You
Oh
can
my
look that.
goodness,
I
that's
mean,
so great.
yeah. So, anyways,
Yeah.
her and I, we traveled there together to do it and ran it together. And, and I did have some family show up. I've lived in Nashville for 7 years, almost 27 years. But I'm from Chicago, and so a lot of my family's up in Indiana, and so they
Hmm.
came to cheer me on, like at mile 9 and 16, and at the end of the race for sure. But I had also, again, when stress comes, it feels like it comes like there was a lot of stress. I had lost my job. My brother had passed away that year.
Oh, wow.
And then, I find out, oh, here, you've got to go through this again. So they all came to the race. I'll never forget at the end of it, they're giving you the blankets and stuff. And At the end of a big race like that, chocolate milk is one of those things that you
Yeah.
like, that's a good thing to drink. It's got a lot of protein and, so anyways, my friend and I had both grabbed some and we had gotten them mixed up and I had told her everything about what was going on and and I said, well, I don't think you're going to be able to catch my cancer from drinking, from the wrong bottle. But anyways, I didn't know for sure then, but sure enough, I went and got the needle biopsy, which actually took an extra week longer because of insurance stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance, oh, it's terrible. Terrible. It's just shameful just how, the kind of hoops people have to jump through. And, even though I was unemployed, I still had some resources and certainly a
Mm-hmm.
community to help me out. I can't imagine what it's like for people who don't have that. It's just
I know.
shameful.
I know. I've had, 2 diagnoses and had insurance both times. Great insurance both times, and I just can't imagine what it would be like to have decisions being made based on the fact that I don't have insurance, or when folks have lousy insurance and they're like fighting for care. One of the things
Yeah.
that happens to me right now is I have to have my CT scan pre-approved by my doctor before my insurance company will allow me to go get the CT scan. I'm like, pre-approved? How about this? I've had cancer twice.
Yeah.
You all have that information, but like, no, like, and I don't know if their hands are tied or however it works, but whatever the reason, it's really too bad because when you are working with doctors so that you can stay alive,
Hmm.
you have to put that
Yeah.
on pause and wait for approval by your insurance. It's a really difficult thing to have to go through. It
It
doesn't.
really, and that was probably the most stressful thing because,
Is that right?
here I am at the end of the year. And I've got to decide if I'm going to start with a new insurance plan beginning of the year. Will they accept me? Should I try and cram? So I got the diagnosis and they want to do a mastectomy reconstruction. And so I, kind of had to work with my doctor and his schedule and determine, okay, do we want to cram this in on this insurance before the end of the year or a new insurance at the beginning of the year? And so it was stressful. But we did, we worked it out and I had the surgery and we scheduled it for the end of January in 2017. So here I'm newly unemployed. I'm trying to find work, but knowing, hey, by the way, I'm going to need a ton of insurance and a bunch of time off.
And a bunch of time off. Would you like to hire me? And what was the stage at this point?
The stage was stage 1 breast cancer, and they didn't know at the time if they would want to do. They didn't think they would need to do radiation, and they said they would determine after the surgery if they would need to do chemo. Fortunately, we did not need to do chemo.
Oh, good.
So I mean, my doctor, his name is Pat Whitworth here in Nashville. He is incredible. And I just feel it, in jumping through all those hoops and everything, I always was like, once I get to that day of surgery, I know I'm in the right hands. It's just
Mm-hmm.
dealing with all of these crazy hoops and financial fears and all of that.
Sounds like what you're saying. Is this accurate? That regardless of how all the insurance navigation and all the preparation went, once you went in there to have surgery, you knew then at least that you were going to be taken care of the best possible way with a doctor who was like couldn't be a better match for you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so valuable. It's just such a wonderful experience. It's so valuable for people to hear because I've met with doctors who just were not a match for me. When I was
Yeah.
diagnosed the second time, I ultimately went with Dr. Nancy Kemeny at Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York.
Mm-hmm.
But I had met with a doctor in Rochester, New York at the hospital, cancer hospital up there. I can't think of the name right now. Everybody up here knows it, but it's just not
Mm-hmm.
coming to mind. And as he's talking to me, he just seemed really annoyed that I had taken the time to get a second opinion with him. And he was just saying to me, I do the exact same thing your other doctor's saying. Pretty much anything else.
Oh,
And I'm thinking to
yeah.
myself, can you imagine if like I didn't know the value of a second opinion? I mean, it sounds like you were already with a fantastic organization and you didn't feel the need to. Like, let's say I went to Sloan Kettering. I'm like, do I need a second opinion? I mean, maybe, but these people are fantastic. But,
Yeah.
you know, for folks who don't get a second opinion, don't know they should, don't have the means to, or don't believe they can, and they're working with a doctor who's not a match for them. Like such a terrible feeling when you don't feel you can speak up and say what's there for you, and you don't feel aligned with that person. It's so important.
Yeah, it really is. I know a lot of people who have had to go through getting a second opinion and the stress of that. I feel really fortunate in being able to work with Dr. Whitworth, and like I said, I had a lot of friends that were medical professionals as well, and so being able to ask them, like, he always
Mm-hmm.
rose to the top. So I
Is
always
that right?
felt, yeah, so I always felt very comfortable with that and still do to this day. I mean, even that actually, when I was going through the issues with the insurance stuff, he took the time to tell me before he did that second biopsy, he's like, I am really sorry that you've had to deal with this. And I mean, he really cared, in that sense, but then was also this incredible doctor. And, I feel like I really couldn't have asked for anything better. So I'm very fortunate. And, again, kind of going back to my community. So here I am. I get on an individual insurance plan that's, has a very expensive monthly premium and also a very high deductible. And
Mm.
I don't have the cash, you know?
Yeah.
And so this was where I have to say communities, because there were from my running community who put together multiple fundraisers from this yoga class that was one of the most, and I was able to participate in that. It was before my surgery, and it was one of the most beautiful experiences of my life. I even wrote a poem about it. It was really special.
Hmm.
And they also put a fun run together, and it was a night run, and they called it Headlamps for Headlights, since I needed a new headlight. And
Ah.
so between my running community, I've been involved in a number of different churches. I'm a performer and have
Yep.
sung. Yeah, everybody here in Nashville is one way or another.
Shocking.
Yeah, right. But churches that I've been involved with and been involved with the music with stepped up in amazing ways. And I mean, I just felt surrounded and taken care of. At that point, I had a career in major gift fundraising. And now people are showing up and handing me checks.
Yeah.
That's quite a humbling and beautiful thing. I've learned so much from that, and I've also really tried hard to pass that on, when I see somebody else who's going through something.
Mm. I agree.
Yeah. It's I can't even, I don't know, I can't even explain to you what that was. It was truly incredible.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I believe we had two benefits for me the first time I was diagnosed. I had a 4-month-old
Mm.
son when I was diagnosed, and my stepson was 9 years old.
Mm.
And here we were, with me getting diagnosed, and more, I had great insurance, but I didn't have income.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, let me go back over this. Yeah, so I had great insurance, but I ended up going on disability and not
Mm-hmm.
having income, and it was really difficult, and it was equally difficult to ask for the financial support. That was a huge hurdle for me.
Yeah.
I, like you, came from a family where like you just get things done.
Sure.
And most people in my family, tend to not ask for help. And, at least maybe not with the community, at the community level. And my wife, she made it really clear to me, like, we can't do this. Like, we need people's help. And
Sure.
when I was diagnosed the second time, I had a fundraiser. And when people give so much, for me, it changed my experience of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really does that. My mastectomy, I had to buy myself a recliner to sit in because I didn't have one because, I was out running 1,000 miles. And I set up next to my recliner, kind of my little command center, this little table with all this stuff that I would need. And one of the things I had was, a box full of cards and thank you cards. And I would just write, I finally had somebody who said to me, who gave me a very, very generous gift. And, he just said, you don't need to write me a thank you note. Because but I just, the gratitude, it's like, you can't keep it in. It's,
Yeah.
And so, I was super fortunate to have a lot of help between. So after the mastectomy, they put in an expander. And so I had that in for a few months. And then I actually was able to get back to some running. And at the end of, so my surgery was the end of January. And the end of April, I ran the half marathon here in Nashville. And then the week after, I had the surgery where they take the expander out and put the implant in, was the week after that.
So how did it feel to run a half marathon after all you'd been through? That must have really provided you something.
It was pretty amazing. And it was a little bit different from my other races because, I was actually signed up to run the full. And I knew I couldn't, I can fake a half marathon, but you can't fake a full marathon. There's no way. It's too much.
Is there something about that when it gets to the full marathon and what it demands of the body? It changes?
Yeah, it really does. And, I was I was still in decent shape even through, my surgery and the recovery and everything. But I knew I couldn't get up to a full marathon in that short of time. But I had a mantra, that I would things that I would say with every step. I focused the first half of the run, kind of on myself and would say, I'd had little mantras that I would say when I would run. And the second half would all be about others and, how they helped me, and would say those things with every step.
Really?
Yeah. It's just little tricks. I'm not somebody who runs with like headphones or anything like that on. I want to kind of experience everything that's going on. And, like when I ran the marathon in Indianapolis with my friend, like we made another friend. Because we're out there for hours. And, so we made another friend, and we still, we're still connected and chat on social media to this day.
Oh, how sweet is that?
And so it's that kind of community. And then the running group, that I started my journey with and have done a lot of coaching with, they always have a party afterwards. And I got the Woman of Steel award at that. And it was, but that community, like I said, had stepped up in such a way. That's what got me through. I would not be here. I could not do this on my own. And between that and, my Cory, we actually started dating in December of 2016. So just when this was all starting.
It's a great pickup line. That's someone I just got diagnosed with cancer for a second time. What are you doing later?
I know, right? Well, we had actually known each other. We went to school together 30 years ago. So,
Oh,
and we just reconnected, but
that's sweet. But you said
yeah.
community, and
Mhm.
it's such an important part of navigating cancer.
Mm.
And yes, it's the donations, but also the time and the energy that people devote to us. Like I have lost track of the between the two diagnoses, the amount of time and energy and meals and conversations that people provided me. And I'm clear that that was your experience as well. And it's
Yeah.
it's there's something about receiving so much that there's no way that I could ever return it.
Yeah.
Where I
There really
reach,
isn't. And I mean, I just treasure that. Like you said, I always talked about it and how people showed up. And, not only physically showed up, but just in the ways I remember, in those first 2 weeks, I had the drains in, which completely freaked me out.
mm-hmm, cyborg.
And
I
I
hated those things.
was fortunate to have this amazing neighbor, because I was home alone at this time, and I had this neighbor that would come over once or twice a day because I couldn't drain them by myself. I couldn't do it, and
Emotionally, it was just too much.
yeah, I don't know, I just couldn't do it,
No,
and
can I step in for a
yeah,
moment? Like, I now have a colostomy from having rectal cancer.
yeah,
And when I first had to deal with it, I'm the kind of person that if I have to do something, great, I throw myself in and I do it.
mm-hmm,
And like, I don't know, day 4 in the hospital, I have no memory, but I don't know what day it was. But at some point I looked at the nurse and I said, I had taken over doing it. She'd come in and I would do it. And I said, can you please do it? I said, I just can't today. And what was going on is like, I was heartbroken
mm,
that I had this thing coming out of my body that I now had to deal with manually, and having the drain tube, and moving around and not wanting it to get pulled on, even though it's stitched inside of me, and
yeah,
seeing the fluid in there, it just, it had me. It's only in this podcast where I realized that the best way to put words to it is to say, I didn't want to be in my body. I was just like, no, like, ew, yuck. I'm saying yuck to my body. And so it's incredible that your neighbor came over and helped you with this because,
yeah. Well, and boy, just the way you said that is spot on. I mean, and at this point, I had spent a lifetime. So I'd been a performer back in my 20s, where I had to look a certain way and weigh a certain amount. And, even when I started my running journey, I wanted to lose some weight and then I lost some, and that got me a lot of attention. And, so, and now here I am, I've got this, and there's still some times where I'm just like, what is this thing in me? And like, even sometimes just the way my clothes, like I have this one pajama shirt that I don't even like to wear anymore because the way it lays on me just feels strange
because of
on,
the implants.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just because and I just have one implant, but
Implants.
it's
Implants.
still like, I don't know. And certainly the drains, I'm just like, and I had, wore this weird shirt that had pockets in it so I could keep them in
Oh my
there.
gosh.
And, it was just, it freaked me out. I just did
Yeah.
not want, I didn't, I'm supposed to be this, hot little runner. And, I'm just, everything changed. And
Yeah.
I fought it for a while, but now I'm definitely in a place where I'm like I'm happy with me. And
Great.
it took some time. It took to what? I'm going to be 53 here in a few weeks. It took a long time, but
Birthday coming up.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes time. It takes time get to get. I don't know what's. I'm at a loss for words. Like just to get reacclimated with our new body.
Mhm.
with our no longer intact body, with these parts on us that we know they're not really us, and
Yeah.
how to manage it.
Yeah. Well, I was again super fortunate with mine. I did get to, not that everybody wants to know this, but I've listened to some of your other podcasts, so I know people talk about lots of stuff. So.
Well, if you know, it's these conversations that I believe provide so much to the listener. It's just when we hear like, okay, like it's not just me who didn't want this stuff attached to me and didn't feel okay with me. Like these intimate and sometimes uncomfortable details, to me, are the real, diamonds in these conversations. So thank you for being willing to talk about it with me. With us.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was again fortunate with great doctors, and I got to keep my nipple, which I know a lot of folks don't get to,
Yeah.
and also had some great, as far as occupational therapy and that kind of thing too. They were super helpful in that. But I don't know. Again, when I kind of look back on it, I feel fortunate to this day for, for my Cory and for the scores and scores of people. Some that I couldn't believe the anonymous gifts that I got.
Yeah.
That to me is what I'll always tell people, that 2017 was the best year of my life. Because it really was. Because I've never felt the kind of just love and caring, real genuine. And, it's one of those things that's like, wow, I wish everybody could experience this without having to go through the cancer part. you know?
Oh, I so know what you mean.
Yeah. It's really, and it really makes me look at the other people in my life. Again, I try. I'm not perfect, but I really try to find ways to kind of stand up and help others, whether they're going through something like this or, where they're in that kind of time of need.
Mm-hmm. I do as well. One of the changes for me after receiving, again, an overwhelming amount of support where I simply lost track, it results now, I'll see on social media, someone will say, hey, my friend is going through this, her husband was just in a car accident and they need money while he doesn't work. And I immediately just, boom, I click the button
Yeah.
and I give something, maybe it's $20, maybe it's 50. And sometimes it's been 10, sometimes it's been 5. It's just because I want to chip in because people have done so much for me. And B, I want the person to know, yeah, maybe I did give you $5, but I want to give you something. I received a letter in the mail once from a woman I never met, and the handwriting was difficult to read. And there was a check for $10, and she wrote, I read about what you're going through, and I wanted to help out. I'm on Social Security and have a very limited income, but I wanted to support you. And I just started crying. I'm practically crying right now. It's just,
Yeah.
guarantee like she went without something to help me and my family. And I had to deposit that check because I would never want to communicate to her that like her generosity was not worthy.
Oh, what a gift.
That you know what I mean? Like I had to accept it because that was the gift from me to her, was to say, wow, thank you. I get how generous you're being, and I wouldn't want to take that from her. Say, oh, I'll just rip the check up. I don't want her to have to spend the money. It's like, no, man. Like it's a communication to her that like, I'll say that differently. It allowed her to be a contribution and to be that generous and kind and loving to someone she'd never met. Not finding the words you get, and everybody who hears, they get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. It was important to allow her to be a contribution and to accept that money from her. And so now, like, when people will ask me, can your band play a benefit? I'm like, yep. I mean, I don't know if the band can, but I can. And then I'll think after I say yes, I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work for my life right now. It's like, that doesn't matter. Cancer didn't work for my life.
But I don't, just those connections. I just, the person that popped to my mind now that I haven't talked about yet. In fact, I need to text her to tell her I'll be in the office tomorrow. But my the occupational therapist, I had really bad cording, which is, after your nerves, after they take all this out, your nerves don't know where to go and what to do. So they just start trying to attach. And so I would feel this pain, like, all the way down my arm, like to the, like to the bottom of my thumb. And so she would do what was essentially, I had to do different exercises and that kind of thing, but she would also do what was essentially like a lymphatic massage. And she's like, we're just going to pop those cords. And I'm like, well, let's not talk in those terms, but okay. But so
let's not pop anything, okay?
Yeah. But, my sessions with her were usually about an hour. And, this was at the beginning of my relationship with Cory, and I was kind of unsure about it. There was another person that I was kind of interested in, and, I don't know. I didn't know what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as she's working on me, we would have these long conversations about, all of that. And so we just became, great friends. And then at one point, Cory came in with me so she could show him some things that he could do to kind of help me with this. And it was amazing, he got a little emotional.
A little verklempt.
A little verklempt at one point, but she's just a dear friend. And in fact, just before the whole pandemic thing, we were texting back and forth, and she's like, I'm dating somebody new. Let's the four of us go out. And, now, of course, we haven't been able to do that. So that'll be one thing. But, again, even though I have to go in the office tomorrow, and it'll probably be routine unless it isn't routine, like it goes. But I do kind of go, okay, I get to see these people that are friends and that have cared so much for me. Gosh, I'm fortunate,
Yeah, you are. And it sounds like Cory being there was just, in his emotional response, was just an expression of love and the opportunity to be a contribution to you. He's getting to know you. He's all just googly-eyed about you. And then he's like, wow, I really get to chip in and make a difference and contribute to her. Like,
he really did.
Right? What a beautiful thing. What a great guy.
He really did, and still does. And he he's one of those people that just shows up in the most beautiful way for me and for a lot of other people.
Well, how about this? Why are you on the podcast? Because I reached out to our mutual friend, Mike.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to Mike about the possibility of adopting or buying, whatever it would be, a hypoallergenic cat. I'm talking to him, cats, dogs, I don't know. And then I told him about the podcast, right? I told him about the podcast and how I'm really struggling with the recording and more the post-production editing.
Yeah.
And he said, I've got a friend, Cory. I think he's such a generous guy. I'm sure he'd be willing to help you. And I was like, wow. Like, when someone says, I have a friend who's never met you, who'll just be more than happy to help you. Like, that's so when you speak of Cory, like, that's what I think of. The guy who just like, he has no reason to help me other than he's just a great guy.
Yeah.
And clearly it means something to him to be a contribution.
Yeah.
Sounds like you really scored.
I feel like I did. And thank you for saying that, because nothing makes me happier than for other people to see, what a bright light he is.
Yeah, and I'm so glad. And so he and I were chatting. I told him I'm doing this podcast, and he goes, And now here you are.
Yeah.
You also mentioned this neighbor of yours that helped you with the drains when you were living alone, and I'd love to hear about that.
Well, again, she was a friend from running. Her husband, actually, I ran with more, and he was when I was coaching, he was a coach and led a lot of the coaches in some of the longer distances. And, I had just kind of put a call out asking folks, if I could find some help with this. And, we were friends, but, never really like hung out a lot or did anything like that. And she just stepped up and said, hey, I've helped somebody else with this, so I know what it's like. I'd be happy to come over. And she literally lived around the block and, again, made an incredible difference, because I couldn't do it. I couldn't. And I've helped. I actually had another friend, another running friend. She was a few weeks behind me in her diagnosis and treatment, and she had a little bit different route. Like she would throw her drains over her shoulder, and I'm like, what? And and take care of them herself. I didn't have it in me to do that. So it was great to have somebody to help with that for sure.
Yeah, like that person being there by your side. As you spoke about that, it reminded me of when I was getting chemo. I
Mm.
would go in, I'd get the steroids, I'd get the anti-nausea meds, I'd get the chemo, and then when the bag was empty, they'd hook up a different chemo, and I'd have a pouch, like a little oversized Walkman full of chemo that would pump into me for the
Wow.
next 48 hours. And
Holy cow.
yeah, and then I'd go back on. So I'd go in on Wednesday and go back on Friday, and they would detach it and send me home.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in the shower, and there's the chemo pump going into my port. I don't know if you're familiar with a port, but it's a
Oh yeah.
little silicone thing inside your chest under your clavicle that, for those of you who are listening, it's way easier on the veins to have chemo and blood draws all going through a port because it runs right from under your skin over the clavicle and into the, I guess it would be a vein maybe that goes into the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And it's way easier than going through the veins in your arms all the time because they can collapse and they can create problems. And so the chemo would be connected to that. And then, I go to get in the shower and I have the chemo bag. Oh gosh, I feel kind of nauseous right now just thinking about it. It was really difficult to have a chemo bag attached to a hook outside the shower where the towel goes. And then a chemo bag,
I
a
can't
chemo,
imagine.
like a little fanny pack kind of thing hanging off there. And then there's the IV line going into my shower.
Yeah.
And, I'm trying to keep the water and the soap off of the
Yeah.
port area. But it was just like we have these things hanging out of our bodies. And it's amazing how unsettling it is.
Unsettling, exactly. I mean,
And
because like you said, I think you said earlier, like, I know it's sewn into me, and like I would just, I would have this fear that it would somehow drop and come out, and then I'd be there alone, and,
mm,
so I was always extra careful. I did go out some with the drains, but not much because I felt really uncomfortable with that. And I can't imagine having it for this extended period of time, which it sounds like you probably did with the chemo.
yeah, it was 6 months.
Oh my
Both
gosh.
times I had cancer. But I will
Wow.
tell you, I don't remember which diagnosis it was. I, gosh, I just don't know. But in the town I live in Ithaca, New York,
Mm-hmm.
on Tuesday, or was it, let's see, Reggae Tuesday? Yeah.
Reggae Tuesday.
There was like an open mic Reggae Tuesday thing. And the
That's
guy
great.
who taught me, who inspired me to write songs and play music and was my motivation to, and my other friend was my motivation to start playing the guitar. These guys' names are Kevin and Rob, and we have this three-part harmony group.
Oh, I
That we,
love it.
yeah, and we would do reggae tunes, or we'd take a tune and kind of give it a reggae groove, Especially because I don't write reggae tunes; I write more like outlaw, honky tonk, country kind of stuff, storyteller stuff about my
Okay.
life. Yeah, and they'll kind of like give a reggae groove to that. And so we'll learn these three-part harmonies, and they wanted me to come out and sing with them. And I would just be like, fellas, like I'm on chemo, like I can't do this. And one day, I either called or texted one of them, and I said, I don't know what's going on, but I think I got to go out to Reggae Tuesday and sing. So when it was our turn to get up there, and there's a band that backs you up, right? And they're all buddies of ours, folks we know. And I'm up there singing with them, and I have this chemo thing pumping chemo into my body.
Wow.
And in that moment, I was like, I don't care if anyone sees it, because I didn't want to keep it hidden, but I didn't, it's just, it's like, I don't mind telling people I have cancer, but someone's like, hey, what's that? You're like, oh, it's chemotherapy. And all of a sudden, they're just like, oh, I was basically kind of saying hello. And now I'm suddenly having a conversation with you about chemo and that you have cancer. And it's just, whoa, that's a lot. But being up there was such a liberating moment. And I think it really helps me
Yeah.
get super comfortable with carrying around this chemotherapy and this pump running into my body. It's because it was hard to go out in public
Yeah, I bet.
and to be carrying that around, knowing that it's going inside you. And you with your drains and I don't want to go out. I got drains. Like, what if something happens? What if they get caught on something? When I'm not using my wireless earbuds and I'm on my phone, if I'm using the wired ones,
Yeah.
and I turn and the wire catches on something and it just
Yes.
rips it out of your ears and gives you an experience that can really only be expressed. The really loud expression of profanity. I think it's the only way to deal with it. Is you have to yell
I think
profanity
you're
at the top of
right.
your lungs. And we don't want to rip these things out. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No, it's definitely that feeling. But, when you were talking about kind of feeling liberated and being up there singing, I mean, that's, kind of in my mantras when I ran that half marathon. I mean, I felt that way too. I'm like, I didn't have the drains in then. That was long past that. But,
mhm.
there's something about getting out there and doing the things that, you love to do that are your normal, that you still can do and should
Mhm.
do. So I think that's incredible.
100%.
And like you said, to know, I can't imagine what that would be like to know, okay, this is pumping, I mean, poison into your body to help you, right? The chemo. I
Mhm.
mean, golly, that's really something. Thanks for
Yeah, and
sharing that.
and you really brought attention to something like when one of the nurses was priming the IV line for the
Mm-hmm.
chemo, she spilled some on the tile floor, and she quickly yelled to one of the other nurses to come clean it up. And I'm like, Is there a concern here? Like, what's going to happen?" She goes, "Oh yeah, it'll eat right through the wax over the
Oh
tile."
my gosh.
I'm like, "And you're putting that into my body?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Ay ay ay."
What is going on?
Yeah, so it's something else. But I said earlier that off thread, off camera, we can talk about running. But then you
Mm-hmm.
started sharing about, essentially you had a gratitude mantra
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
you ran. And I started thinking about, how so many of us post treatment want to reclaim our bodies.
Hmm.
And you run. And so I would love it if you could take some time to tell me and everyone about just, give us an idea of like what did it take to go from couch to 5K?
Well, it took a lot of time and patience for sure. So I mean, the great thing about those kinds of programs, and in particular the one that I've done over and over and I've coached over and over, it's a process, and it's starting out in small increments of running and walking. So maybe the first time you'll run for 90 seconds, walk for 60 seconds. You'll do that 5 times. You'll have a 5-minute walk on the front, 5-minute walk on the end, and that's it. And then
Hmm.
you keep adding to that until you get up to distance, and then you start, running the distance. But I have to be it took me, so the first 5K that I ran, I couldn't run the whole thing. And it took me to my third 5K where I was like, I'm gonna run this whole thing. Like I knew it. And I
Hmm.
remember it. It was a Germantown Oktoberfest. We have a little Germantown here in Nashville. It was an Oktoberfest, and they have a great little race. And actually, part of the race runs inside of the farmers market here in downtown Nashville. And that was near the end of the race, and I got to that point, and I'm running. I'm like, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna run this whole damn thing. And so it was thrilling. And then a year later, I ran that race and I came in third in my age group. So I had gotten a lot
Yeah.
faster. But it's a lot of, as I tell all new runners, and I've worked with hundreds of them, since I've went through that. Then every year after, I've been a coach to help folks, and then have worked with the local running store and done some of those too. But you just got to kind of take the time and give yourself a lot of grace. Realize you're going to have, even after, I mean, I remember when I was training for the second marathon, I think I had a 15-mile run in summer, yay, in Nashville. And I think I was 9 or 10, 12, somewhere miles in, 9 miles in. And I was just like, I can't do this. I have to stop. I can't, I wasn't breathing. My ears felt like they were filling up. And so I just stopped. I was probably about a mile from home. And so I had to walk back home, maybe a little under a mile from home. But, I still could finish my training and I could still run the marathon. I just had a crappy run that day. But, you just kind of have to keep at it. But the biggest thing for me, again, was really giving myself a lot of grace and having a community to kind of work on these goals with. And I have my own little running group now. We call ourselves Happy Running People. And most of the folks in the group have run at least one half marathon. And actually, the group is just getting together to kind of start doing a couch to 5K training again because, it's been a little while. And I actually need to do that too. I've had some foot issues and I've just kind of taken a break from running for the last little bit. And I feel like I want to get back in it. But having that community to meet up with, to talk with, to encourage, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, it sounds like you're talking about getting through a cancer diagnosis too.
Yeah, well,
giving yourself a lot of grace and relying upon community.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Exactly.
So you do a 5-minute walk and then you run for 90 seconds, then walk for 60? Is that what it was in the beginning? Essentially?
Well, I'd have to look at essentially, yeah. I mean, it's these, intervals of, and then you keep expanding it. I'm sure there's apps, and I mean, you can look up on the internet too. There's all kinds of training plans for couch to 5K for really any distance.
Wonderful.
And they're all essentially the same, but it's, you start with kind of time instead of distance, so I'm going to run in these, it's interval running. And the intervals increase until you get to a point like, okay, I'm going to run for, we're going to run for 20 minutes today. And then at some point you get like, okay, we're going to do a quarter mile. So that's essentially how it just kind of progresses along.
Can a beginner start with whatever sneakers they own, or do you recommend that they buy some proper sneakers?
I would buy some proper sneakers. I actually worked at the local running store for a few years.
What are proper sneakers?
Too, and it's different for
what
everybody.
There's no commercials here. You can just say what are your what did you start with?
I started with a brand called Newton, which actually I did most of my early running in those and ran both marathons in those. And now I run in Mizuno shoes. I've run in Brooks. I've run in a brand called On Cloud, and they have like Cloud Flyer and those kinds of things. But it really kind of depends. If you're first starting out, you want to have a little bit of cushion. You don't want a minimal shoe, because running it's hard on your body, so you want to have a little bit of cushion. And I think it's a good idea to get fitted because, some people, if you pronate, which is like your ankles kind of collapse in, or if you supinate, which is they kind of you roll out. Essentially for people who pronate, you need a little extra. You need what's called a stability shoe because it'll give you a little extra supports. Because think about it, if your ankles are collapsing in, then think about the alignment of the rest of your body and your knees.
Yeah.
So that the main thing, whether you're trying to run a 5K or a marathon or an ultra or any of that, certainly the goal is to cross the finish line, but the real goal is not to get injured while you're trying to cross that finish line because, you want to keep your training going.
Yes.
You don't want to stop.
So that's valuable to hear. If you want to take this on and step into this, then you have to keep in mind that injuries are quite possible. And so you want to get ahead of that and not set yourself up for failure.
Yeah. It's going to hurt. I mean, I'm guaranteed it's going to hurt, but you got to try and discern what's, just kind of normal muscle pain and if you're really injured. So,
Yeah.
anyways, it's I mean, I'm happy to send you. I'll send you a couple of different Couch to 5K plans, and I mean, you can do it on your own, but and it's hard to kind of gather in
Yeah.
communities right now, but there's something very special about training
Yeah.
and running in a community. I mean, I remember the first time I ran 20 miles, and it was a really hard day. It was a hard run. I was struggling bad at the end. And I got to the end and I kind of hyperventilated
Hmm.
and cried. And I'll never forget that group of people just kind of coming around me and I've seen other folks that have had some of those kind of same experiences. It is, you kind of have to put it all out there, especially when you start running some of these longer distances. But there's something really special about being able to do that with a group of people that are kind of striving towards that
Yeah.
same goal and encouraging you towards
I'm
it.
sure,
Yeah.
similarly, as listeners hear this podcast, they are hearing other people who are going through a similar struggle. And there's so
Mm.
much available out of having the understanding of others. Now, granted, when you're in physical, when you're with one another in a group and someone can support you in that moment when you're down, when you're hyperventilating and crying because you've just pushed yourself beyond what you were at all prepared for, that's a real special thing. And of course, in person is so valuable. And here we are doing
Hmm.
this so people can get an idea of what you've been through and what was the hardest part and what lifted you up, and that information
Mm.
means so much. At least I believe so. That's why I'm here.
Well, I appreciate this.
Yeah.
It helps to talk about it for
Oh,
sure.
good. Yeah, and me too. Like I feel so lucky. Like you're the 22nd guest so far,
Hmm.
and I
Wow.
don't post these in order. So people, as you're listening right now, you're like, wait, but this is only podcast number blah. Well, I try to mix them up, so they don't get released in order of the date they are recorded. But I do put the recorded date on the bottom of the timestamps.
Okay.
So you had the expander in,
Mm-hmm.
and you ran a half marathon doing your beautiful gratitude mantra.
Yeah.
And then it came time to put in the implant, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That was a week after the half marathon. And at that point, I had been poked and prodded and had enough surgeries and painkillers and all that good stuff that it was pretty easy. It's outpatient. They just take out and slip the new one in.
Outpatient.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Wowee.
They knock you out, so I mean that part's nice, but yeah, so I was, back home that afternoon and was doing well. Actually, the one of the crazy things that happened not long after that, Corey and I it was a beautiful day and we were walking kind of all over. It was during the Stanley Cup finals and the Nashville Predators were in the finals.
Hmm.
We went to a baseball game and then we walked down by the arena after everybody was coming out and because there was a lot of excitement in town. And I mean, we walked for miles and this was probably 4 or 5 days after. And then we went out. There's a really groovy little outdoor bar restaurant place in the hip little neighborhood I lived in at the time. And we walked over there and had a drink. And then we were walking back probably about at 9 o'clock at night to my place. And we were held up at gunpoint.
Oh my.
Yeah. And, it was crazy. We were unharmed, but at one point he started kind of grabbing at, my arm and on the side where I've had all this surgery. And, I was kind of, it's one of those things that happens quickly, but it feels like it's in slow motion.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was kind of yelling the whole time, why are you doing this? And da da da. And he got away with a little bit of cash and Corey's wallet, but we were unharmed and able to get back home. But it was a scary thing, and I mean I did at one point say because when he didn't think we were moving fast enough in what he wanted, that's when he started kind of grabbing at me, and I'm like, I just had surgery, I'm
You told him that?
what? Yeah, I did. And, he, thank goodness it didn't get any more physical than that.
Yeah.
Nobody got thrown down or hit, or certainly, no one got shot. But it was a scary, very scary moment. And, I still sometimes have issues to this day. I get very nervous walking at night if I, feel or hear something behind me, because he kind of came up behind us and it seemed really unreal.
Yeah, it makes sense that it would still arise for you and there'd still be that fear, because it changed your experience of the world.
Yeah. And then after I've gone all through this and I've, survived this and I've come through that and I've had my, hopefully my last surgery for a while, and like, this guy could do something and, change the course of all of that. So, luckily that didn't happen.
Right.
Yeah. But
yikes! I'm so sorry to hear that, and I'm glad you got out of it with just a loss of money and a some ID and credit card or whatever. Just
yeah. No, we were okay. I guess the other thing too. So then, we started out this conversation kind of talking in parts about insurance and all of that. So, now that I've had all these surgeries, I've hit my deductible. So I'm like, all right, this is the year I'm going to knock everything out. But it turned out I also ended up, and I've heard it can be a side effect of, so I take tamoxifen every day now, and I had early onset cataracts. So I had to have cataract surgery in both my eyes. I was 50. That's still fairly young, right?
Yeah.
So I had that surgery, and then I went and had my first colonoscopy in 2017. So I kind of hit all of it, but I feel like I'm if I don't have to go for surgery again for a long time, I'll be okay with that.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. Good for you for getting the colonoscopy. And now the age is bumped down to 45. So if you're listening and you're 45 years old or older and you haven't had your first colonoscopy yet, or you're not already doing them, it is time to do them. And what is it, like every 5 years or something like that?
Yep. Yeah. And it wasn't, you hear all these horror stories about it. It really, it's not that bad.
No, the worst part about getting a colonoscopy is the prep day the day before.
Yeah, but even that, it wasn't fun, but I don't know, I expected to feel just really, really drained and horrible, and it just didn't.
And you didn't.
It was okay, and again, I've been super fortunate in all these surgeries to have incredible doctors. So
yeah, wonderful.
Feel lucky.
Great. So the tamoxifen, is that something you take for, how many years is that taken for?
Well, I've been taking it since the first time around after I had the lumpectomy, they had me take it, and I was just getting lots of side effects of, sweats and all of that kind of stuff. And, I said, do I really need to keep taking this? And they said, probably not, and so I went off of it. But since the second go around, I take it every day. And, it's just a pill. I think it helps. Who knows? We'll find out every time, I go in to get checked. But again, feel fortunate I haven't had to go through what you and a lot of others have with the chemo.
Yeah, chemo's pretty yucky.
Yeah.
And you've been diagnosed twice. And that's no small situation. That's a heck of a thing. For me, I'm curious what it's like for you, because for me, when I was diagnosed the first time, once I got my head back on straight after about a month, I thought to myself, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to be okay. I had my moments of fear and upset, but I stayed on the trajectory of I'm going to get through this and I'm going to be okay and I'm going to be on the other side eventually. And then I was diagnosed a second time, and that just knocked me off my feet.
Yeah.
And it had me think, okay, this is not what I thought it was. My life, like diagnosed a second time, and for me it was a stage 4 diagnosis. I'm like, okay, I'm going to
Wow.
die,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't, and I'm still here. And I
Mm-hmm.
just saw my primary physician a few hours ago for, I'm having this weird pain in my behind where my, I'm trying to listen to me, trying to be, think of a polite way to say it. So because of the colostomy,
It's
my
okay.
backside is all stitched up, and there's some
Sure.
sharp pain I'm having back there, and it's been consistent, and I don't quite understand it. And at this point in my life, I'm like, okay, it's been a couple months. It's not going away. With all I've been through, I have to get it checked out. And
Indeed.
so
Mm-hmm.
I go and see her, and she's like, "There's my amazing patient." I'm like, "Your amazing patient?" She's like, "Yeah, you've had cancer twice. You had metastatic cancer of your liver, and you're still here." I'm like, "Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'll take it." It's such a terrible thing to get that call, and so you did get. I don't want to step over that. You're saying, yeah, you didn't go through chemo, but yeah, you've been diagnosed with cancer twice, and that's a
Yeah. And there is
difficult
something about
thing.
that. Again, like the first diagnosis, I was like, okay, I'll get a lumpectomy. And, that was outpatient and the radiation. And I would go do that and I'd go to work. And, yeah, it affected my life, but, I had good insurance and all that. But the second time around, it came in a year of just a lot of loss. There was actually earlier on in that year, there was a loss of a relationship, which, I mean, it was a good thing that that one was gone. It was a very kind of toxic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
There was the loss very unexpectedly of my brother, the loss of a job. And, I was just kind of grinding through, and running was kind of, helping me do that. I felt like that here's a place I can push myself and, feel good about a result, because I'm not getting results in anything
Mm-hmm.
else. And so, I mean, I was, in an emotional sense, was in a really rough place. And then when the diagnosis came, I remember saying to a friend, a running friend, some of us had gotten together for like a Sunday where we would, this is going to make me sound 1,000 years old, but we would like crochet and knit.
Mm-hmm.
We'd also have wine and snacks and whatnot. And I was leaving that, and I'm just like, I'm just done. I don't know what else to do. I mean, I can't, like, I've got this and I've got to do something about it, but I don't know how or where. And I'm just spent. I can't do
Mm-hmm.
this anymore. And she's one of those, now I'm getting emotional. She's one of those people that heard that as like a rally cry, and she went out and gathered the troops.
Aw.
And there's another friend in this that was kind of a quiet friend who, I mean, he drove me to my biopsy. He actually, his mother had died of breast cancer and had written this book that he gave me. And he just, one of the things that he taught me after this, toxic relationship that I had been in earlier in the year, this man had taught me, you know, that there's still good men out there and
Hmm.
that are good people and will show up and care and not expect or gaslight, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And so those were two very important relationships there. But I did realize when I got this diagnosis that it was different, just from the way, kind of the doctors were talking to me about it, the way, friends and others would react when I would tell them. It just, like, I could feel the gravity of it a lot more
Mm-hmm.
than I did the first one. The first one, I was like, I'm 43. I'm, have this big important job. I've got to do that. I've got to raise money and look cute in these shoes and all of this. And, this time I'm like, how am I going to keep my house? And how am I going to even pay for this? How is this going to happen? How am I going to take care of myself? So,
Yeah.
a lot more gravity in that second one. Again, when I go to my appointments, they're all routine until they're not. So, I'll never forget even that first time.
Yeah.
When I went for that mammogram, they're like, yeah, we want to do an ultrasound. Yeah, so what was supposed to be an hour visit, all of a sudden you're there for 3 hours. And then, all the luncheons and meetings that I had planned that day, everything had to get changed. There's always that. And so I do like to, kind of take, if I can, if I don't have to work the day when I have my routine appointments, I like to do that just in case they're not routine.
Yeah. And I'm with you there. And sometimes for me, it'll just be the level of emotion that arises for whatever reason at that like routine scan that has me just realize, I'm not going back to work. I'm so glad that I am not going back to work right now and don't have anything scheduled because it just all came up. My last scan was in December. I have an annual scan now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been having some pain in the area around my liver. I wasn't sure what it was. And then every year at the scan, the nurse practitioner presses her hand into my liver and asks me to take a deep breath. And I did, and it hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 10 minutes between the time that I saw her and the doctor came in, I had begun to prepare how I was going to navigate the chemo and how I'd work every other week because the chemo is so much and so difficult. And seeing this whole thing pass before my eyes, and then my doc comes in, she goes, okay, scan was clear. You're doing well? Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, and then I'm just going to go back to work after that?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and then not to mention, I feel sick generally after I have the scan because I had a mild reaction. So now I get prednisone and Benadryl
Oh, wow.
in preparation, before I do the scans. I'm actually going to ask them if they can reduce the dose. I have a very sensitive system, and when they give me standard dosage, it's so much for me. It makes me
Yeah.
wacko. And so, after that as well, it's just it's not something I want to go back to work from. Currently, my scans are in New York, so I don't even get to work by the time I get home,
Yeah.
4-hour drive to New York or just taking the bus.
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah. The Cornell bus, it's pretty amazing. The university provides free bus rides for people going to New York City to see their doctor about a cancer diagnosis.
Wow.
And the local cancer resource center, it's through them. So you reach out to them and let them know I'm going down to get a scan. And Cornell provides me the ride. And it's such a generous thing.
That's incredible.
It's a nonstop ride to New York. And I'm going down there with the pain around my liver, already wondering, already being concerned. I can just sit back, watch a movie or do some work or listen to a book. And it's worth mentioning on this because I'm so appreciative and so grateful for it. I just want to see more and more of that around.
No kidding. I wonder about, again, because I'm, here in the city, but when I've gone in for different treatments or surgeries, you see folks and they talk about how they live 3 and 4 hours away. And it's, God, that's a huge stress. So what a gift that you've got that service. That's really amazing.
It sure is. It sure is. It's something I'm very grateful for.
Yeah.
I want to get back to it, though. You said that,
Mm-hmm.
you ended a relationship, which is good, and then you lost your brother,
Mm-hmm.
and you lost your job,
Mm-hmm.
and then you were diagnosed with the
My
recurrence?
second. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. That's so much. Yeah.
It was
And
a lot.
you're looking at that year, and you're just like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
my marriage ended in 2010, and then I lost my job in January of 2011, and then I moved out of the house in May of 2011 and got diagnosed with a recurrence in September of 2011, and that was
oh,
just like in
jeez.
10 months. So I'm looking at you, I'm like, yeah, I can relate to that. It's like, hello,
Exactly.
relationship, job, and cancer again. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. And then it just kind of, yeah.
It's not funny,
but it is. It's like,
but the
really?
absurdity of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so running really got you through that.
It really
Well,
did.
helped. Running helped.
It did help. And again, that community of people, I can't even, like, just sitting here talking to you, in my mind are just kind of, I'm a very visual person. So in my mind are just kind of the pictures of the faces of the people and how and when they showed up, and, I was told one of the people that was helping organize the race asked another runner, somebody who I've run a number of miles with. He's a much better runner than me, but he's organized, huge musical events and other running events. And they said, would you be willing to help out and donate? And, without hesitation, he's like, absolutely. And, that was the response from so many people. And then it's the little big things. Those are my favorites. I think of my, in those first 2 weeks after surgery, you can't wash your hair. And I'm a gal. I'm kind of vain. I like my hair to be cute. I like it to smell good. and my hairdresser, said, well, come on over. And she washed my hair. And she didn't charge me anything for it. And I'll never forget, like, getting in the car and, like, the car smelled amazing, like, because my hair smelled so good.
Yeah.
And that was a big little thing, that was a small thing for her to do. And my stylist, she's the one who, like, owns the shop and cuts hair, but, like, she took the time to wash my hair, and that was huge. And there were lots of just little gifts like that just meant so much. And that I still draw on, We've got a lot going on in our times where you lose faith in humanity. And, it's nice to go back and go, wow, there's still really some incredible beauty that I got to experience. And I'm going to lift that up and hold on to that for a little while.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there is far more beauty and generosity and kindness and love in this world than not. It's just that if you are not selective of, where you gather your information from, if you just put on the news, bad news sells papers, bad news sells advertising.
Sure
And
enough.
I now follow, like, there's a good news. There's different media feeds that I'll follow on Instagram where it's just good news. It's just people doing incredible things. And I do it with intention because, I create a structure in my life that routinely, consistently presences me to the incredible generosity of human beings. Because that's not in the current design of this market economy. Like it, love it or hate it, it's irrelevant. It's just not part of the design. So you have to really create it for yourself. And like you said, I have a friend, Michelle, who through my treatments, she would come to my home and cut my hair because she was the person who cut my hair. And she, I adore her. I love her ridiculously. She's wonderful. So many people do. And she would come to my home and cut my hair. And when it was happening, I was so thankful, and I was sick and I wasn't feeling well. But I look back now and I'm like, you took time out of your day to come to my house every few weeks, every month or whatever. And not to mention she came over and helped out with so many other things. She's incredibly generous. But yeah, it's like those kinds of things, like your hairstylist, she just brought you in, washed your hair so it could be nice and clean, and gave you that. I mean, as you describe it, it was more, it wasn't clean hair. It was it was the whole experience of having your hair washed and then having it smell good and having felt cared for.
Yeah.
And what she did was wonderful. What she did provided you way more than the wonderful clean hair that you were thrilled about. Provided so much more.
Exactly. I mean, well, that, and I have another friend coming to mind that was, I called her my taco angel. And she was, I love tacos. Who doesn't?
Right.
But she was one of those people. She was actually a volunteer that I worked with in the fundraising work that I did, and she's just a beautiful soul, a beautiful artist. Oh, she's a beautiful artist. And when she heard what was going on, she called me immediately and, like, put her best organizing skills to work. She's like, all right, we're going to set up this website. We're going to do this. We're going to have, and that was an amazing way for her to show her love, and, because she's got this great energy and, was able to pull together lots of, I've been fortunate to be part of a lot of really generous communities, and she was able to kind of pull all of those together in a way, and it was just so special. It was just a special time for our friendship in that too, you know?
Yeah.
So those are just like, I mean, those little glittering memories that,
Yeah.
I get to look back on and really just feel that love and caring that we need to show more of to each other, you know?
Yes.
Again, like I said before, without having to go through, I don't wish it on anybody, but I wish folks could see that and feel that and have a real understanding and empathy for what somebody else is going through, whether you know what that is or not. We don't all have to, like what you were saying about, the kind of economy that we live in. It's all about, we have to conquer and blah, 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 blah. And I mean, sure, I was doing a lot of that when I was trying to run. And, I've got to be big and strong and do all these things. But there's, the things that are really meaningful are, that neighbor that comes over for 20 minutes and empties your drains and, we talk about our day. Or, the hairstylist who makes your hair smell so good it makes your car smell great, and you know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's those are the things that really matter. Really
They are.
matter.
And what I'm hearing in your speaking is we can bring that to people in our lives without having someone have to get diagnosed.
Yeah.
Like, each one of us can incorporate that into our week. So this time this week, I'm going to go out of my way to do something for someone, to create the kind of world that I want to live in, the kind of world that lifted me up when I was down, because we're all going through something
Yeah.
right now. Aside from, the insanity of this world right now, in our personal lives, like somebody's always got something difficult that they're dealing with. We have our we have our runs of when everything feels like, we're on top of the world, but life is never shy about bringing some difficulty and some struggle into our life. It doesn't necessarily have to be cancer, and it could be, with ourselves or with a loved one or a friend, and we can choose to, again, create the world we want to live in by who we are with our community.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful. I love that.
I do too. And I, again, feel just the urge to try and give that away as much as possible. So,
Yeah. So with your second diagnosis, what was the treatment? Were you able to, it sounds like you didn't have to do chemo for that one either. It was just like,
no, it was the mastectomy surgery at the end of January in 2017. And then there was about 6 weeks of, 2 weeks where you've got those drains in and, can't do a lot of heavy lifting, really can't lift my arm up over my head. And after those 2 weeks, you start going to the occupational therapist, and, they help with some of that. And, and then I did get out and walk some, and then probably started running again sometime in March.
so there was no radiation for that one?
No radiation the second time.
Interesting. So for stage 0, you had 33 radiation treatments. And then for stage 1, you just had the mastectomy and the reconstruction.
Yep. Yeah. And then taking the tamoxifen.
And taking the tamoxifen. And so the implant was for the second diagnosis.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. You've been through a lot.
Yeah.
And here you are. It's 2020, and you said you're coming up on 3 years, right?
Yes. Yeah. Coming up on 3 years. So, again, I kind of look at that 5-year mark as, hopefully I'll graduate from that this time around and won't have any other reoccurrence. That's the plan. And I'm doing a lot of work to really, both times I had the cancer diagnosis were both times of extreme stress. And I really think, who knows? I've I have some breast cancer in my family. I did get the BRCA testing, nothing there, but I really think a lot of it's tied to stress. And, I'm just doing my best. We can't eliminate stress from our lives, but, I've really changed my focus on the things that are important and what I'll allow myself to be stressed about. How about that?
Yeah.
You know, because the things I was stressing about, just they weren't important. It had a lot to do with how I looked, how I thought other people thought I looked, and how that would make me feel. And, none of those things are really that important. And, if I had the right job, if I was making, enough money and all of that kind of thing. And, we live a pretty simple life, but it's pretty sweet, and we get to do a lot of the things that we want to, and travel and be with family, and well, not travel right now, but so those are the kinds of things we're focused on, and it feels
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really clear about what you commit yourself to,
Yeah.
and far less of that decision making is being run by the unconscious, that's being run by the culture. And you're actually looking and saying, you want to know what? This is what I want to devote myself to. And this is what I've been devoting myself to. And like, why am I doing that? Like, no, like this life is precious, and I am going to devote myself to what matters to me, what speaks to me, what Cory and I thrive from, not on
Mm.
these upsets. There was times in my life where I'm, giving my attention to things that upset me. Like, I don't do well talking politics. Every once in a while I'll dabble in there, but then I'm like, you want to know what, Diane, how I show up with others when I talk politics?
Mm-hmm.
Generally not my best side, It's generally not my, the best me. I've recently been learning, or may I say, I made a conscious decision to get really curious about other people's, political beliefs and values. And I don't bring that into this podcast
Sure.
because I'm not interested in creating separation, because politics is phenomenally effective at creating separation instantly. But my point is, I recognized that I was giving my attention to trying to get someone to believe my point of view. And I'm like, yeah, good luck with that. So is everybody. And now I'm just really curious about what has people have their point of view. And
Yeah.
and then what I've been finding is that a lot of folks don't know.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
me, because why did I get curious about other people's point of view? Because I realized that I didn't know where my point of view came from.
Yeah.
It pretty
Yeah.
much, I learned it. And I'm like, okay, I am not going to devote my time and my energy to a conversation that doesn't forward the goodness and the kindness that people are yearning to be in
Mm.
the world. Like, look, I've been diagnosed twice, and the amount of people who stepped up, the number of people who stepped up and just gave and gave and gave. And the guy dropped me off. He drove me down to the, 45-minute ride. The first diagnosis, the hospital is 45 minutes away. And this guy
Mm-hmm.
gave me a 45-minute ride down. He hung out for my treatments and then gave me a ride back. And we got back. I'm like, thank you so much for giving me a ride. And he looked at me, he's like, you're welcome, but that was nothing. He's like, please ask for more. Like, please.
Mm.
I want to do. I was just like, what? People want to give, and
You're absolutely right. They want to give. And I did get better at asking for what I needed,
mm-hmm.
you know? And
That takes something.
because people want to help. They want to show up, so instead of being vague or like, "Oh, I don't need anything," I would say, "No, I need I need somebody to come over and, pick this up, or, vacuum the floor, or, something like that." Makes a big difference.
It sure does, and then it gives people, the opportunity to step into it. Like, folks will say, if you need anything, let me know. And for a lot of people I've spoken to, that's a really hard thing to do, to let people know what you need.
Yeah.
And you did. You were like, hey, you want to help me out? Great. I need this, this, and this. That's exceptional. That's uncommon. And I had to learn that over the years.
But it has helped me in, again, trying to help other people. I will say, how about I bring a meal over this day? Instead of saying, do you want me to bring you a meal? You know what? Hey, I'm going to do this, can I come over at this time? And
Absolutely.
because then they can say, you know what? Yeah, I really need that. Or, you know what? No, we're covered. We're good.
Yeah, I'm taking Monday off, and I want to know if you need any rides.
Yeah.
To any appointments, or can I bring you over a meal, or I'm grabbing a smoothie. Do you want one? Just it's difficult for some folks to ask. It seems like for a lot of folks to ask, and so when we, instead of saying, let me know if you need anything, can I do this for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you find out, oh, you said no because you didn't want to tell me that you don't eat gluten? Oh, okay. Can I bring over some gluten-free lasagna?
Right. Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Well, Diane, I have really enjoyed getting to know you and having this conversation.
Oh, likewise. I really love what you've shared. You really expressed some things beautifully, and it's nice to have that conversation with somebody. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
You are so welcome. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. We'll see you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I truly hope this podcast was of value to you. Please subscribe and let your friends and family know they can find But Seriously, the Cancer Podcast, anywhere podcasts are made available. To learn more about my cancer survivorship coaching, please go to bertscholl.com. That's BERTSCHOLL.com. If you'd like to support But Seriously, the Cancer Podcast, please go to our Patreon page at patreon.com. That's patreon.com/But Seriously, the Cancer Podcast. And thank you so much for all you do. See you all in the next episode, and thank you so much for listening. The intro and outro music you hear is the creation of Saint Kid. You can find him on social media as The Saint Kid. The purpose of this podcast is to provide a platform for individuals to discuss personal experiences with a medical diagnosis. The host and guests are not medical professionals, and the podcast is not intended to provide medical advice or psychological therapy. Whenever there is a concern about mental or physical health, please consult a qualified medical professional.